You are being destroyed, not by hatred, not by war, not even by poverty, but by positivity. A quiet, smiling violence that tells you to stay grateful, be productive, look on the bright side, even when you're breaking. Byung-Chul Han, one of the most unsettling philosophers of our time, says this is no accident. This hyper-positive world is the perfect prison. No bars, no guards, just endless smiles. And by the time you realize it's killing you, you're already smiling too. You wake up, you're tired, but you tell yourself, just push through, think positive, be grateful, and everyone around you, they're doing the same. Posting affirmations, sharing success stories, drowning in burnout, but calling it ambition. We live in a world where negativity isn't just avoided, it's banned. Sadness is treated like failure. Silence is treated like disconnection. And rest, that's weakness. Han calls this the violence of positivity, a system that no longer needs to punish us, because we punish ourselves. In his book, The Burnout Society, Han writes, "The complaint of the depressive individual, nothing is possible, can only occur in a society that thinks nothing is impossible. You were told anything's possible, that you can always do more, that if you're not happy, it's your fault. But what if this empowering idea is the root of your suffering? What if positivity is the new form of control? The more you're told you're free, the more you're trapped." Michel Foucault once said we live in a disciplinary society, one where we are constantly monitored, corrected, trained. Han says, that's old news. Today you're not forced to obey. You choose to obey. You wake up early, push past exhaustion, stay productive, not because someone is yelling at you, but because you think it's what makes you valuable. That's what Han means by the achievement subject. You no longer feel like a victim of power. You feel like the master of your fate. But deep down, you're exhausted, anxious, burned out. And here's the terrifying twist. When you fail in this system, you don't blame society. You blame yourself. You weren't disciplined enough, didn't hustle hard enough, didn't think positively enough, and so you return to the grind, smiling. Now think about it. What kind of power convinces you to imprison yourself and thank it for the key? In Han's world, true transformation happens when we encounter the other, the strange, the unfamiliar, the outsider. But in the positivity society, difference is erased. We are surrounded by sameness, same opinions, same goals, same language of optimization, hustle, and healing. Even rebellion has been repackaged into productivity. Self-care becomes another task. Meditation is now a corporate tool to increase efficiency. Therapy apps track your mood like a KPI. We don't meet people anymore. We meet mirrors, and mirrors don't change you. They seduce you into sameness. This is why, despite all our connections, we feel deeply alone. Han writes, "Depression is the sickness of a society that suffers from excessive positivity. In a world where everything is filtered, optimized, and branded for positivity, your sadness becomes invisible. Not because no one sees you, but because no one wants to. What if the reason you feel unseen is because you were taught to erase your shadow?" We were told that transparency is freedom, that sharing more, our goals, our feelings, our routines, is the path to connection. But Han warns us, transparency has become the newest form of control. In the past, power hid in shadows. Today it hides in light. You track your steps, you track your sleep, you even track your mood. Your life is on display, not because anyone asked you to, but because you've been trained to want it that way. What you post online isn't really for connection. It's a performance, an endless exhibition of your value. Even your suffering has to be beautiful. But what if beauty itself has become your prison? You don't bleed. You journal your healing journey. You don't scream. You post a calm reel about self-regulation. And it's addictive because every like feels like proof you're doing life right. But inside, you're disappearing. You're not being seen. You're being scanned. There was a time when burnout was a warning sign, a signal to rest, to reevaluate. Now, it's a status symbol. I'm so busy, I barely sleep. I'm just grinding right now. We wear our exhaustion like trophies because in a positivity society, exhaustion equals effort, and effort equals worth. Han calls this the performance society, where everyone becomes both master and slave. You are your own taskmaster, chasing infinite productivity. But infinite productivity requires infinite energy, and you are not infinite. So what happens? You become a contradiction, smiling on the outside, crumbling on the inside, still pushing, still posting, still pretending. Because if you stop, if you rest, the system tells you you failed. You're lazy, unambitious, negative. But here's the truth. Your exhaustion isn't failure. It's a symptom of a world that no longer sees you as human, only as potential. The system doesn't want you to be alive. It wants you to be active. There's a difference. In today's world, silence is treated like a threat. We fill every pause with podcasts, playlists, productivity hacks. Even our healing has a soundtrack. But Han insists, silence is where real transformation begins. Not curated silence, not guided meditations. Raw silence. The kind that terrifies you. The kind where you meet yourself, without filters, without goals, without performance. Because in that silence, something sacred returns. Freedom. Not the freedom to do anything, but the freedom to not do. To sit, to breathe, to be. But that kind of stillness is dangerous to a system built on endless motion. So it replaces silence with slogans, stillness with stimulation, solitude with scrolling. Because if you're never alone with yourself, you'll never know who you really are. Now, have you ever wondered what would happen if you stopped performing? In Han's eyes, the modern soul is losing something ancient, something essential, the ability to truly meet the other. We live in a world obsessed with sameness. Algorithms serve us what we already believe. Social media curates people who reflect us back to ourselves. Our timelines become echo chambers, not mirrors, not windows, and slowly, invisibly, our capacity for difference withers. You stop listening to people who challenge you. You cut off anyone who disrupts your flow. You ghost those who don't match your vibe, not because you're cruel, but because you've been trained to believe discomfort is toxic. But discomfort is the birthplace of meaning. Without the other, the strange, the unfamiliar, the unpredictable, you never grow. You just repeat. You stay soft, agreeable, efficient, but hollow. This is the silent violence Han describes. A world without confrontation, a life without depth, a soul without resistance. Another trick of the positivity culture is its false promise of empowerment. You can do anything. You are the architect of your reality. You are your own rescue. At first, it feels liberating. No more limits, no more dependence. But over time, it becomes a prison, because when you believe you're fully responsible for your emotions, your outcomes, your healing, failure becomes your fault. Loneliness becomes your fault. Burnout becomes your fault. You don't ask for help because that would mean admitting you're not high vibrational. You don't cry in front of friends because they'll tell you to. Just shift your mindset. And eventually, you stop reaching out altogether. You become a self-contained brand of positivity, always coping, always smiling, always alone. Han argues that this isn't freedom. It's a new form of obedience. A quiet surrender to a system that punishes any emotion it can't monetize. There's one emotion the positivity machine fears most. Not anger, not sadness, not even despair, but negativity itself. Not as a mood, but as a force, a resistance, a refusal to comply. When you say, "I'm not okay," you interrupt the flow, you question the system. And when enough people start saying it, the system starts to crack. Han sees negativity not as weakness, but as truth, the raw material of rebellion, the birthplace of clarity. Negativity, when not suppressed, can become compassion, discernment, change. It's not about wallowing, it's about listening to the parts of yourself that have been silenced by the pressure to smile, because under all that forced light, there is a truth you've been afraid to say out loud. You're exhausted, you're hurting, and you're done pretending. Maybe negativity isn't what's wrong with you. Maybe it's what's still right. The old systems of control used fear, fear of punishment, fear of authority, fear of failure. But Han says something chilling. Modern control doesn't use fear anymore. It uses love. Not real love, but the language of love. You're special, you're free, you're limitless. You're the hero of your story. It sounds empowering, but it's engineered obedience. Because if you believe you're already free, you'll never question the cage. You'll keep working harder. You'll keep branding yourself. You'll keep smiling, and you'll do it willingly, thinking it's your choice. This is what Han calls psychopolitics, a system where the pressure to perform is internalized, where rebellion looks like hustle and rest feels like guilt. You're not being watched, you're being seduced. And the more you love your productivity, the more invisible your chains become. And now it's time for you to face a question whose answer may terrify most people. What if your freedom is just another form of control? People don't just say they're tired, they say, I'm a burnt-out millennial, I'm chronically overwhelmed, I live on the edge of collapse. And the world responds, not with concern, but with content. Self-care products, relatable memes, mental health hashtags. Instead of dismantling the system that's draining you, it sells you lavender candles and productivity planners. You don't get a revolution, you get a morning routine. Han calls this the violence of self-optimization, where healing becomes another project, where exhaustion becomes another brand. But healing isn't a product, and burnout isn't your personality. It's a signal that something deep inside you knows this isn't sustainable, and that knowing, that still, quiet refusal, isn't weakness, it's a kind of wisdom. The system doesn't fear your collapse, it fears your awakening. It's a strange truth. The more obsessed you are with staying positive, the more powerless you become. Because when you're taught to avoid pain, you avoid boundaries, you avoid conflict, you avoid truth. You nod instead of speaking up. You say, I'm fine when you're breaking. You keep the peace, even when the cost is yourself. Positivity tells you, don't be dramatic, don't be negative, don't make people uncomfortable. But some things should be uncomfortable. Some truths deserve your anger. Some boundaries deserve your silence. Some situations deserve your exit. Han argues that we've confused light with life, that in chasing constant brightness, we've burned away the shadows we need to grow. Your darkness isn't the enemy. It's the part of you that still knows what's real. So the truth goes even deeper. Have you ever wondered if maybe it's not your life that's too heavy? Maybe it's your refusal to feel it. What happens to a soul that's never allowed to suffer? Han's answer is stark. It goes silent. Because pain isn't just a burden, it's a messenger. It tells you where something's wrong. It tells you who you are. But in a culture of performance and positivity, we're trained to mute it. Stay grateful. Don't be so sensitive. Keep moving forward. So we do. We work when we should grieve. We smile when we should scream. We pretend when we desperately need to be seen. And eventually, something inside us stops speaking. Not because the pain is gone, but because we've buried it so deep we forget how to feel. Han calls this the fatigue of the soul. A tiredness not of the body but of being. It's when life continues on the outside, but inside there's a quiet collapse. How much of your life is real, and how much is just the performance of someone who's silently disappearing? In ancient times, privacy was sacred. The inner life was yours, a realm untouched by the world. But now, everything is content. Your joy, your pain, your heartbreak, your healing. The system doesn't just want your labor, it wants your soul on display. Every thought, every feeling, every authentic moment becomes part of a feed. Not because you're forced to share, but because you believe that sharing is freedom. Han calls this the ultimate trick of modern power. It doesn't silence you, it amplifies you until you're nothing but noise. And in the process, something sacred is lost. Not because you're lying, but because constant exposure robs you of intimacy. Real growth needs silence. Real healing needs mystery. Real identity needs a place to breathe outside the algorithm. Did you know that this is the real reason for your loneliness? You're not invisible because the world ignores you. You're invisible because you've shown them everything except what's real. It's the final cruelty of the modern soul. You're surrounded by eyes, but you've never felt more unseen. Likes, comments, DMs, views. You're watched, but not known. You're validated, but not held. Because when everyone is performing, no one is really connecting. And when everything becomes visible, nothing feels sacred. Han argues that this is a new kind of loneliness. Not isolation, but hyper-exposure. It's the loneliness of being seen in fragments, of being consumed but never felt. And in that kind of loneliness, even love becomes performance. You say what you think they want to hear. You post what they'll applaud. You edit your soul to fit a screen until you don't even know who you are anymore, only who you've pretended to be. This isn't just burnout. It's the quiet death of meaning itself. If positivity is the new prison, then refusal is the new revolution. But not the loud kind, not the screaming protest, the viral clapback, or the productivity detox that becomes another trend. Byung-Chul Han suggests something subtler, something quieter, something far more dangerous to the system. Stillness, withdrawal, silence. The refusal to perform, the refusal to self-optimize, the refusal to smile when you're breaking, not out of despair, but out of sovereignty. Because the most radical act in a world obsessed with more is to want less, to not be productive, to not be seen. That's the beginning of freedom. Because the truth is, you don't need to fight harder. You might just need to finally stop playing their game. Han believes the soul needs sanctuary, a place where it isn't observed, tracked, or judged, a space where it can feel, fall apart, and reassemble without an audience. This isn't about escaping the world. It's about reclaiming something that was never supposed to be for public view. Your grief, your longing, your confusion, your becoming. These are not performance metrics. They are sacred. And when you protect them, you begin to feel something ancient returning. Not the dopamine rush of a notification, but the quiet strength of being whole, even when you're not okay. You remember what it means to be a soul, not a signal. Now ask yourself, if no one saw it, if no one liked it, if no one approved, would you still be real? At the end of all this, beneath the fatigue, the noise, the constant optimization, there's a soft voice whispering, "Come home." Not to your followers, not to your brand, not to your goals, but to the parts of you that have been waiting quietly in the dark, the neglected self, the uncurated truth, the ache that no smile could ever cover. Han doesn't offer a self-help plan. He offers a mirror. He tells us we're not broken, we're exhausted, we're not lazy, we're drowning. And what we need is not more motivation, but more mercy. The mercy to rest, the mercy to feel, the mercy to not be okay. That is not weakness. That is how you begin again. So if you're tired of the noise, let it fall away. If you're done performing, leave a comment, "I'm ready to take off the mask." And if you're ready to feel something real again, find a quiet corner of your life, close the door, and just be. For more soul-cutting psychology like this, join our community of people walking toward the light. Subscribe, click the bell, and grow with us. Until next time, keep shining, not to be seen, but to see.